So I remember there was one of the ladies I was talking was 75 years old. She was running a Etsy shop. So explaining push notification was impossible to her. Okay. So, but what had she had problem was she wanted to get her reviews from her Etsy store to Shopify. So in order to eventually, I wanted to have her install PushOwl, but I helped her import her Etsy reviews to Shopify. Like I coded and like did that. And so in fact, and then I realized that she told it's a very big problem. Like so many people are want to move from or want to have their shop on Shopify. So I actually wrote a blog post that how can you move from your Etsy reviews to Shopify. And if you want to do, I can do it as a service and I will charge you $50. I think I made around $2,000, $3,000 out of that service. And it was just a blog post. I think in the early days, what was really important was, and I think it was another Y Combinator blog, which talked about, hey, you should be talking to your customers. Obvious as it may be, but it wasn't obvious, especially as an engineer back then. So what I started doing was had dedicated time hours, especially at night, because US customers would be more awake at night, is going to the different communities, Facebook and Slack. And there was a fixed slot. I wouldn't do any engineering. I would just either be reading those community posts, commenting over there, and trying to slide into the DMs of the customers. But another thing which I did is like, hey, if you install PushOwl, I'll make it free. The thing, like few people took it, but then also it helped me. PushOwl wasn't making money, but then I was still able to connect with many people. So once you start talking to your customers, it also helps in multiple ways, right? We were able to kind of fund it. So these people who were installing Etsy reviews were direct Shopify customers. I could start selling them. And everything started from that 75-year-old lady who just was into that domain, but really didn't need PushOwl at that point of time.
I really love what you said about talking to your customers, right? And this is something that I see a lot of people taking for granted, even in large businesses. Like you'll have your giant marketing team who has a budget of like crores, and they never speak to the customer, and they have no idea what the customer actually wants. And you being a small business and calling your customer, speaking to the 75-year-old lady and helping her with her problems, and that's the journey of how you grow. And I feel like that's a journey that we've seen in a lot of other really successful entrepreneurs. One example that comes to mind immediately is Kama Ayurveda, where how he started off was by having one store, talking to the customers at that one store and figuring out what their problem was. And I really like that, what you spoke about over there. But actually, I have a question here. Speaking your customers is important, but I think the questions you ask them is also super important. What kind of questions were you asking them? You said something about you asked them what their problems were, but maybe there was some more learning from the kind of questions you were asking them.
So very good question. Like, so a lot of people, in fact, a lot of startups do talk to their customers, right? It's not that they're not doing, but they're doing in a very classic fashion. Like they'll set up a 30-minute or 1 hour Zoom call and they will ask those questions. Especially in the initial days, I feel like you need to connect with your customers first and try to refrain from asking very leading questions. So rather than asking, do you need push notification or do you want to install a push notification app, maybe ask, how do you actually engage with your customers, right? And what are your problems while you're facing it, right? Like that's one level, little above, little broader, but also still tying to your problem domain, right? So then maybe then the person says, I do want to connect with my customers, but the problem is that they don't want to leave their emails or phone numbers when they're coming on the website, right? So then, okay, awesome. Maybe then you should, would you be open to the idea about push notification, because you don't have to give emails, etc. And it's just one click in that fashion, right? And maybe, then if you have more time and you're more connected with your customers, you can even go one level above abstract, is that you ask them, hey, what are the problems that you have as an e-commerce website owner, right? Then they're going to talk about, hey, I have issues with my returns, like fulfillment, etc., right? I have issues in India. They talk about, hey, like Shopify only allows you to put an email and not phone number, while most customers are comfortable with phone numbers, etc. So then you start also, and okay, I have the issue with my emails being very expensive because every time I add more contacts, it just becomes more expensive and expensive. So now what you're trying to do is like, okay, so this is how they consider expensive. This dollar amount is more expensive for them. This is cheaper for them. Now what you try to do is pick up those ideas, and then you can always keep those learnings into your product also, right? So one of the things which we felt psychologically was that your price should be lesser or equal to what the Shopify starting price should be, right? Shopify starts at $29. So if I price my product 30, psychologically I start looking more expensive because they're paying me more than as an app than the Shopify price itself, right? So so especially in the that's what like is stop. It's called leading question, and it's a typical design interview thing. Some designer told me about it, so that's how I would typically talk to my customer.
Can you give me an example of a leading question? Because I've tried to give people examples of leading questions all the time, but they still ask me leading questions.
Yeah, one thing I mentioned, right? Like, would you like to try push notification?
I would love to try push notification. And
yeah, you're just doing. You're just doing it because you're talking to me, and you just want to make me feel happy. You won't install PushOwl after this. I know that.
You know what? I'm going to go to my Shopify store right after this. I'm going to install it. That's how much I want to make you happy.
Yeah, awesome. I know you run a Shopify store. Yeah. So other what else can be leading question? Like, I'm not a designer, I said, but so the way, like, for me, it's I connect very friendly with the apps. So like with my merchants, like I've gone to their homes and have lived their life from breakfast to their day. So my approach is a very slow approach. It's not fast in today's so I'm walking with them, office, whatever they're seeing, observation is there. And I typically, zero questions is actually the best way to learn from a customer, by just observing. The more you're asking, in fact, you're like leading them in certain ways to that, but it takes time and patience in whatever interviews you do.